Are you sure this is a test, Shane?
The hobo.
The arsonist had oddly shaped feet.
You know what? There's a package I'm going to show him. I'll be right back.
Speaking of audio tests, are we done testing audio? Did you keep going?
No, we're still going.
The let's see. I like Anchorman audio test.
Yeah, I think so. But I got to get a package. I got to get a package ready.
Watch
New
language,
York.
guys.
Oh man, you take all the fun out of the audio test.
No,
there, JJ.
we got 7 people that
Unique.
may or may not be
New
okay with
York.
it. I don't know.
The arsonist had oddly shaped feet. You just destroyed the only thing that I love.
Right?
What do you love? I love scotch.
How's this?
I love poetry. And of course, I love Baxter here. We still going? You want me to keep mumbling something there, JJ?
Yeah, why not?
Boy, pick a movie that I would know. I can't do any of the ones I know.
I know, I can't do much about it because it's the difference.
Let's see. Unique New York. The rain in Spain stays mainly in the plain. Doe, a deer. Doe, the stuff that buys me beer. Ray, the guy that brings me beer.
Yeah.
Me, the guy who drinks the beer. This is why I'm a computer guy. Because if I sang, I would be broke.
I know.
Yeah. For that matter, if I had to act, pull a face, there's no way I can do it, man. I've got one person I can be, and that's me. I can't do frowns. I can't do smiles. It's like, pull a frown, it ain't happening. Look grumpy, it ain't happening. Oh, really? Okay. So, no, don't do that. Do not put me on camera.
Not yet. Don't put me on camera. Not for another.
No.
I'm contractually obligated, but not for another 4 minutes and 30 seconds.
That's
guys.
right. Don't make me do it. The only thing, if we were on this during, before every one of these podcasts, I know me. It's going to slip out. A curse is going to come out.
Well, don't.
We got to get that little beep going. Beep.
I don't know when you're going to swear though.
That's a good point.
This is live. This isn't fake live or 5
Fake
second delay.
live.
Well, I guess there's probably like a 30-second delay, but
30-second to live.
But a delay.
You can't reel it back and beep.
No, I can't.
Well, how about this? I'll
No, I
curse
don't
and then you
have-
beep right
I
after
don't
it.
have time for. Yeah. It's
It was meant to cover that up.
a token, a symbol of.
We're trying, really.
We made an effort, guys.
Hey, what if I have a wardrobe malfunction?
How?
Ow, I don't know.
You have. I mean, I guess if you're wearing nothing but a bathrobe and somehow. I don't know.
I don't think we should do the podcast in bathrobes. We do want viewers,
Yeah. True.
Hey, appreciate you helping me with the audio check there.
Hey, I'm sorry. I'm kind of concerned about, other stuff.
You're kind of concerned about the content of our webcast?
Concerned about standing next to you.
Hey, I took a shower last week.
Yeah.
Oh, soap. That's it. Soap. I knew there was something I forgot.
No, you can't just stand in, you can't just encase yourself in porcelain. You actually have to have some moisture.
Oh, is that the issue?
The moisture cannot come from you in any way.
Time out. So standing in the shower is not enough. I need soap and water is what you're telling me?
Well, at least water.
At least some water.
You just use soap.
He stands
This
in
is
the
kind of
bathtub.
dry. I don't know why Shane, I don't know why I have
soap
this
lasts
rash.
forever.
Dude. I don't know how I have this rash, man.
Yeah, I'm going to show them this.
Okay, you can show them that.
Why not?
All righty.
They're out there going, show us what? It's a
Yeah.
surprise, people.
Surprise, surprise. So Shane, you sure you don't want me to make you one of these?
Shane, we're talking about doing a running commentary right before we start,
Yeah,
just to
rock
keep
on.
people entertained
Rock
or annoyed.
Offended, annoyed.
That seems
Run
more
them off
likely
before it
the
starts.
case, so.
You need one of these. I'll go make you one right now. 2 minutes.
No, I'm fine.
Did you drink that much last night?
I didn't drink a lot.
Dude, honestly, we come in here, it's a Thursday, 2 minutes to 10 o'clock, and you don't want to drink? You had to have partied last night. Thanks for the invite. I drop my kids off at 8:30.
Oh, I got
right.
there at 7.
Well,
Did you get a Piper?
No, it was a Lucky 13.
Oh, okay.
It was a birthday party.
Oh. Everyone's invited, but you, Lex.
This is running a while.
What does it do?
Oh, I know.
all right. We'll start in about a minute 20. Going quiet.
Hey everyone, thanks for joining us today. Today we're going to be talking about how to make your deployments even more successful using conditions and options. If at any time during the webcast you have a question, feel free to ask it in the chat window, or you can email them to me at webcast@adminarsenal.com. If your question's featured during the webcast, we'll send you some PDQ swag, such as this lovely PDQ shot glass, or we've got the whiskey tumblers available as well, whiskey not included. Now we'll turn it over to Shane and Lex.
Whiskey not included, really?
Hey, I'm Shane.
I'm Lex.
We're not going to talk about making our deployments more successful, because success never enters into it. Don't enter into it.
Yeah,
No, we're gonna talk about how you can make it a little bit more effective, and hopefully the success will be implied. All right, so let's go ahead and let's jump right in.
Should we jump in?
I love that from Back to School. Professor Turgeson. Well, we got Rodney Dangerfield, but it was Professor Turgeson,
okay.
Sam Kinison. Let's jump right in and interpret. Oh yeah, I had to go Sam Kinison on a Monday. All right, thanks, JJ. All right, so very unused in some cases, I think, features in PDQ deploy. I mean, when you're building packages. Now, a lot of applications out there have both 32 and 64-bit. We're going to jump into the architecture part.
Yeah.
32 and 64-bit versions. Let's take a peek at one that does. I'm going to come over here to iTunes.
iTunes, yeah.
Yep. So if you open up the iTunes package that we've got in the package library, you're going to notice, there's quite a few steps, and some of them seem to be duplicates. Mm-hmm. You've got install app support, but you also have install app support here. You've got 2 install iTunes.
Mm-hmm. 32-bit and a 64-bit. Wow, you labeled those well.
So, Lex, how would I verify or how would I ensure that this only installs on 32-bit machines?
Well, that's where conditions come into play.
That's right. So we're going to go ahead and click conditions on this step. Now, conditions are per
Step. So you got to set them throughout.
Yep. And we're talking about architecture. So in the architecture, we have 3 options. We have 32, 64, or both, right? Mm-hmm. Here we just say only run this on a 32-bit machine, this step. And if it hits a 64-bit, it's going to, as it processes this step, it's going to say, oh, I don't even need to run, not only do I need to run this step, I don't need to copy any of the files or anything down to that target. I'm just going to go to the next.
Yep.
Now, because, here's a little gotcha, because conditions are per step, iTunes has recently, the last few versions, has discontinued support for Vista and XP, obviously, but definitely Vista and 2003. So you actually have to go through each and every step, we had to to go to the OS version and uncheck Vista 2003. If you don't do that, let's say that you have one step in there that you forget, maybe this step 1, uninstall the Apple software update. If you don't have the condition for excluding Vista on that and you deploy this to Vista, it's going to run that one step and nothing else.
Yep,
and then
fail.
Or no, actually, we'll come back and say success because it ran one step.
Huh.
What you want to do is have it not pass conditions on any step. If a target does not pass conditions on any step, then you will get a failure. So here's an example. We're going to deploy to a Vista machine. That's a V3201. Does that sound right?
It does.
All right, and then let's also do it to
Stanza. Now, just remember, once again, guys, I name the machines after some of my favorite shows, characters. So those are machines, not people.
what about V32? What movie was that from? I named that one just for Vista since we only have that many.
Because I was too lazy to build
That
you
is
one.
from
You
my-
built your own.
It's my favorite show.
That was my. Yeah.
So we should see Costanza move forward. Costanza is a Windows 7 64-bit, and V32, assuming it's online, with Lex being the admin, you can never know. Notice that the Vista machine failed, and the error that it came back with, which I mean, it's an error, but really it's mostly for your information. Don't
yep.
submit a ticket to us for this one. Conditions not met, no steps are able to run. So if none of the steps are able to run, you will get a failure on that target.
Yep.
But if you look over at Costanza, I'm going to click on the steps here. You're going to see that there's a handful, since this is a 64-bit machine, there's a handful of steps that just didn't process.
Just say steps not run due to conditions. There you go.
So hopefully that's self-explanatory.
So the nice thing about this is you can build one package that'll do 32 and 64-bit machines.
Correct, as you see with iTunes.
There's instances where you probably don't want to do that.
Give me an example. I need it for instance.
Think. Anytime you're installing a web browser, there's a 64-bit version, a 32-bit version, and most people run 32-bit versions.
So let's look at Google.
And a 32
Chrome.
can run on a 64.
Correct. The reason why we've got both the 64 and the 32-bit version of Chrome in separate packages, obviously we could do like an iTunes and throw them all in one, but the vast majority at this point of people that run Chrome on a 64-bit machine still want the 32-bit version. So for that reason, we did not. And by the way, with Chrome, you can only have one or the other.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can't have. It's not like in old Windows 7, or I should say in IE 9, where you could have a both 64 and 32-bit version of IE. They discontinued that in IE 10, where you basically had to do one or the other. So here, if you want this on a 64-bit machine, if you want the 64-bit version of Chrome, you need to actually deploy. It's better to put that in a separate package. So we've got Chrome. This is the 32-bit version. Notice the conditions, the architecture set to both. It's going to run on both, then install a 32-bit version. Obviously, with a 64-bit, this is a 64-bit Chrome. We're going to change that step to say 64-bit only.
Yep.
And of course, we're going to actually change both steps, because if you deploy this to a 32-bit machine and you don't have step 2 set to 32-bit,
It'll run on step 2.
or to disable it, it'll run step 2 and say, hey, it was successful. But no, it actually didn't install anything.
Now, another thing I like to use as a fail-safe, I don't like people installing stuff on my servers. So a lot of times I will go in and change the OS versions and exclude all the servers.
That's generally a best practice. A lot of our packages, we don't do that.
It's up to you guys to make that choice.
Yeah, it's up to you if you want to do that. But if you do want to exclude servers, I don't want Chrome on any of my servers, just you can uncheck that entire class right there. All right. Pardon me. So that's how you do it. Then once you're done, you just hit save.
Boom.
But if you're going to do that, once again, do it on all of the appropriate steps. All right.
Especially if you're going to do a reboot.
So what is this? What is the logged on state?
What is the log?
That's a condition. Of the 3 conditions that we have, the 3 native conditions, this is the one that gets used probably the least. But this allows you to determine whether or not to run this step if a user is logged on to the target system. So you have 3 options. You have always run, that's
Regardless,
the log,
whether they're logged on or not.
whether someone's logged on, whether they're locked, whether they're whatever. If they're logged off, just always run. Only run if no user is logged on, and then of course the opposite is only run if a user is logged on. Notice it's not a specific user. You can't natively, you can't specify, only run this if Alex is logged on. It's just a user is logged on. If you wanted to get down into the nitty gritty, you would actually have to deploy a script that has that logic in there. So can you think of a use case where a logged on state might be used?
Boy, I like full contact IT, so I just launch it anytime during the day, knock out web browsers, that kind of thing.
Well, how about this? How about this? Here's an example. Let's say that we're going to install iTunes, but I want to display a message if somebody happens to be logged on, because this actually kills the iTunes process.
That makes
so I'm going to go to the top here. I'm going to say new step, and I'm going to go to a message. Just type in a message here, and the message will say, iTunes is going to be killed while we upgrade, or something like that. But there's no reason to display this if somebody's
not logged on.
Not logged on. So you could come over to the conditions. Once again, we're not doing this on servers. We're not doing this on XP or Vista. And just say on either architecture, and just say only if a user is logged on. And then it will display that message. If no user is logged on, it's just going to move on to the next one. That's an example of when you might want to use that logged on state. Another time you might want to use this. Actually, do we have a question before I jump too far?
Oh, let's hit a question. Yeah. Go ahead, man.
I have auto. Just right, you're one eye today, aren't you?
I am. Yeah.
You've got one contact lens. I have auto deployment packages scheduled for deployment off hours. Well done. Lex already hates you.
Yeah.
Because you're
show them your power, man. Knock them out in the middle of the day.
You're being nice. Anyway, auto deployment packages scheduled for deployment to the majority of our computers. I would like to have 2 sets of conditions for each of the deployments for certain departments. All right. So you've hit at this point a by design limitation of by Tanner. For example, I would like to have. I'm sorry.
Couldn't fit that on one screen, huh?
Should have said that we had. Sorry, guys.
I would like to have the logged on state always run on all departments except for public safety, since I don't want browsers to close for those users. Can this be done? At this point, not for auto deployment. Auto deployment, you take the packages from the package library as they are instituted. Now, we do have some plans on allowing a certain modification of packages that are auto deployed, meaning the auto deployment feature, and that's going to be stuff like modifying the conditions, the options, and probably displaying a message or something. We don't want to let you change too much from the actual package when it comes to auto deployment, because we want to, we like to have a high degree of believability that this is going to succeed.
Yep.
But yeah, that is forthcoming. At this point, if that's something, Tanner, that you really need, you're going to want to use a regular schedule. So use the packages import the packages from the package library, and then create a schedule, and then modify those packages that you've imported, like if it were iTunes, accordingly. And you'll just need to do that with schedules. And then, of course, we have made it so that you can attach and detach. So you create a schedule, new version of iTunes comes out, or a Java, you would just go detach that old version in that same schedule. You don't have to recreate the schedule and attach the new version. Yeah.
Another question. Okay.
From Bernard. Hey, Bernard.
Is there an easy way to only deploy to computers that are in specific locations? Each location has a unique IP subnet.
Is there an easy way?
No.
Yes.
If. No, okay, there's an if.
If.
It's a big if.
You've probably got the whole deploy mindset on.
Yeah.
As long as you have something like PDQ inventory. With PDQ inventory, you can create a collection.
Right. You could build collections.
So, and you can even do this in the free version of PDQ inventory. I can hurry and show you guys real quick if you want. This might be a good one. I'm going to open up PDQ inventory.
You can build a new collection based on IP.
Correct. So I'm going to say, but this is the one part that kind of can confuse people. So I'm going to do a new dynamic collection, and we'll call this, a 10.0. Let's build one to not show 10.0.4. How's that sound?
Sounds good.
Okay. So we've got computers here that are 10.0 and then 10.0.4, something like that. You're the one who created this, right?
Yep.
All right. So we're going to say the computer, not the name, but if you go down to the IP address, and then here's where the little gotcha comes in. You're going to want to use the version comparisons, because the version expects numbers, and this will only work if you have TCP/IPv4.
Yeah.
This won't work on a IPv6. So if you just come down to anything that begins with a version and say, all right, let's do maybe version
Lower than?
is lower than 10.0.4, and then you could also do another one. Oops, pardon me. I didn't mean to do a group filter. I meant to do a new data filter. IP address is higher than 10.0.0.1, something like that. So let's go ahead and see what we have.
If you're going to do that, you need to rename the collection with another X in there because we're going to get the 10.0.2s. We're going to get the 10.0.3s.
Well, mostly, yeah.
We'll get 'em
everything,
because of the
everything,
filter, but
everything
yeah.
up to 4.
Well, yeah, you got too many zeros in there, boy. You follow me?
So if you do 10.0.1
Dot X, dot
or
X.
X dot, yeah.
No, so let's find one that has a 10.0.4 in there. We should see, let's see. Yeah, because Burr has 10.0.4. Watch. I'm going to show you guys why you suck.
Well, I
Okay,
mean,
when-
that's a given.
I'm going to remove this filter. I'm gonna remove
Beyond
this
why
filter.
we suck,
I'm going to remove that filter.
it has nothing to do with the filter. It's the title of the collection, brother.
Oh, okay. So you can see we have 87. We have 87 computers, right?
Yep.
So now I'm going to say,
It's like a throwdown now, isn't it?
I'm going to say, okay. We'll call this one like the engineering building. How's that sound?
Okay.
An engineering building does not have 10.0.4. And then I'm going to paste. I cut that, so I'm going to paste another one in there.
Okay.
So we're just saying it's got to be higher than 10.0.0. You can even say 10.0.0, but it's got to be lower than 10.0.4.
Okay.
All right, and then that's going to cut from 87 computers. If you scroll out, JJ, zoom out, you'll
Yeah,
see.
sure.
There we go. You'll see 87 computers down there.
On the
In
left hand.
bottom left hand of the status bar. Say OK.
Let me zoom into that.
And now there's 73 computers. So, Bernard, that's how you can do it. Create collections in PDQ inventory. Once again, you can do that in the free version if you don't already have inventory. But then what would you do? Let's say you want to deploy. I'm looking at engineering. I could right click on this, go to Tools, say PDQ deploy. And then I can choose my PDQ deploy package.
Send that iTunes to engineering. They'd appreciate that.
And then Lex, if I'm in deploy and I want to go the other way around, I mean, I want to go from deploy to inventory, what would I do?
Deploy once. And then your choose targets, you go select PDQ inventory and your collection.
And the collection was engineering.
Lovely ice chewing, by the way, Lex.
Oh, you could hear that?
Yeah.
Okay, I won't do that again. No more ice in my beverage
There's
in the
engineering.
morning.
So
We'll
there's
see-
the
we'll see in the
engineering.
chat.
So that's how you can do that, Bernard. Hopefully that answers your question. Remember to use the version
Yep.
comparisons. Let's, sure.
Yeah,
have
let's hit another question. Is there any way you can change the default to not load to servers? Jack O.
Hey, Jack. I mean, if you're talking about the default for our,
Like
package,
a parameters or
well,
a preference that
the
says
packages in the package library, we have considered that, but we also have gotten feedback from customers that say that they do in fact deploy some of these things to servers, and so we're just saying, hopefully you can import these packages. Now auto deployment won't work, but you can import these and then change that. But then you obviously you can create your own, and then be careful with your deployment, with who your targets are. Just make sure that you're targeting. If you're using something like PDQ inventory or SpiceWorks, make sure to use whatever source you're pulling those computers from to also have some logic in there. Like if I wanted to only deploy iTunes to workstations in PDQ inventory, I could go to PDQ inventory as a target. I'm going to type in workstations. We actually have a collection called workstations only that excludes all servers, and then you can base it off of that.
Now, Jack, can you clarify and maybe he's asking about it.
there is no
being a
preference for that,
global-
Jack.
a global
So you
preference,
can't go
yeah.
in and set it
Oh,
in preferences.
I see what you're saying. Okay,
But-
if you want, now there is a way, if you want to remove within deploy, I don't ever want to deploy the servers. You can't do it off of OS, but you can do it off of computer name as well as computer name patterns, and then you can do it off of subnet. Here's an example.
Also, you can.
So we would do that in PDQ inventory, right?
No, this is deploy. This one is in deploy. So we're going to go to preferences, and going to go to target filters. Now, target filters. This is you have two options. You have exclusions and inclusions. Hardly anybody uses the inclusions, but this is where you say, I'm going to specify, let's say we've got a computer called token. I'm going to add that. Token is in there. If I try to deploy anything to the computer token, let's do a test
Yeah,
run as.
don't do anything that installs anything on my server.
You know, do token. It should come back and say failed. This computer was excluded by a target filter. So if you had, let's say your servers begin with, I've seen this before, something like all your servers, if they were to begin with something like SRV dash, you could do SRV dash splat, asterisk, add filter, and then any computer that begins with SRV dash, you will never be able to deploy to from this console. If somebody has a different PDQ deploy console and they don't have that filter, that exclusion, and then that could work. If you have all your servers maybe on a subnet, then you could actually use a subnet here. And let's see, 10. Let's say I want to exclude anything 10.04, right? 10.0.4 dot 0 slash. What's our bit? What's our bit?
21.
21. It'll use that. You can see I've added that. That'll use that subnet. So anything
Actually,
that's
that changes subnet.
10 dot. You're right. How does that?
10.0.4.21. Boy, you shouldn't do this after I've been drinking, man. Make me calculate octets.
If I did that, yeah, does that screw it up? Oh, there it is. IP 10.0.4. Yeah. Anyway,
We know what we're doing.
Really?
who built this piece of crap anyway?
Slash,
been-
it's
you
a
can
slash
tell- you can
24,
see-
man.
Is it 24?
Yeah.
All right. There we go. 10.0.4. I'm going to delete that. So anything that was in the 10.0.4 subnet would also, regardless of the name, it would not be deployed to. So that's one thing that you can do if you really don't want to deploy to servers, and you don't have inventory or something like that. That's something you can do. So we actually have, Lex has a handful of computers here that are sacred to him. They're sacred. And I actually, in my PDQ deploy on my workstation, I actually have filters to not deploy to some of your machines as well as to Chris's. So anyway,
I like deploying to Chris's stuff just to mess with him.
we're gonna move right on. Let's see, we were in iTunes. We're gonna open this back up. So there's a logged on state. Only there's that message. Only if a user is logged on. Now, one thing that you want to do, if we're gonna come into options now, and once again, options can be globally set, unlike a condition. And for example, run as. Now I'm going to actually go into preferences real quick. Please don't ever change this. Not here.
I was going to say, bad things will happen. We'll get a lot of...
in credentials. We do. I have seen this. We offer training where Lex and or I will go into remote into somebody customer's environment, and we'll provide some online training for them. And a lot of times I love it because I can see how they've got things set up. And sometimes I'll see something like this. People will say, I want in preferences to run packages as local system, and they set that as their default. And really, you don't want to do that. There's just too many problems that can pop in by changing the default. You have to have like a really good reason.
Yeah.
We recommend that you keep it as a deploy user. And then if you have to change it, if there's a time you need to run a package or a particular command step or a step as a different run as, that's where you change it.
Yeah, do it at the package or the command step level.
So we're going to change this to deploy user. That's the default. That's the global. Now I'm going to go back into our package here. So you can see on this run as, it uses the default setting, and it tells you what the default was. If I had changed that default to local system, you would see it would run as local system. That's because I've got the default set. But I could specify this to run as the deploy user interactive local system, or logged on user.
Caveat with logged on user, if you're doing an install step and your logged on user doesn't have the authority to do an install, it's going to fail.
It could, if that installation requires admin rights.
That's true.
There are times you want to use for a particular step. We'll just come back to iTunes. Let's say iTunes is not this, but let's say iTunes installed, it's an application that installed in the users directory. It's not an application that installs for the machine. So you could have this application installed 13 times if there's 13 different users on that machine. That's where you would run that install step, your MSI or your EXE, but you would run that as logged on user. Now, once again, as Lex said, if the installation requires admin rights and they don't have it, then you could fail with a security issue. But what happens when you run as logged on user, it runs, if there's a user that's logged on, it runs in the context of that user. That's why if you use logged on user, you might want to, for that same step, also have the condition to say only run if a user's logged on. All right? That's just a little
logic,
best
maybe?
practice. How about that? It's a little best practice for you. Anytime you have a step on the run as that strays from the default, in other words, I've no longer chosen the default. I have chosen logged on user. That is how that's going to be run. While you can set the run as at the global preferences level, at the package level, right up here, in package properties, I could say, I'm going to change the default. I'm going to run this as local system.
I'll run the entire package as
local system. Now, when I come back to iTunes, the default is local system because I've changed that at a higher level. You can also change it at the deployment level. But whatever the highest precedence is anything at the step that's non-default. So
step, package, then global.
So there you go. If you have that set, it's always going to run as regardless of what your package or your deployment gets set to.
We got another question, man. Should we hit it?
Yeah, sure, why not?
Is there a way to print deployments with all the conditions and such so that you can see all the steps, parts, and pieces for troubleshooting? Bethany.
Hi, Bethany. I don't know.
I've never tried it.
We are actually, in Deploy 7, we've got a new feature that's coming out called Auto Reports. It's similar to the new Auto Reports in PDQ Inventory. And when you look at, if you want to pull a report based off something in the package library, then yes, you will actually have a report that shows all of the steps, the list of all the steps, and a list of all their conditions. But right now, you would have to, I don't know. You'd have to look. You'd have to take a peek at. You have to do some sussing out. So I'm sorry, not yet, Bethany. If so, I could be.
Well, that is the longest way to say not
It's
until the
forthcoming.
feature comes out.
Not
It's
yet,
forthcoming.
but
Not yet, soon.
Okay.
Do we have another question, JJ?
Yeah, we do.
All right. Should we hit it or?
Yep.
All right.
On options and auto deployments, maybe we needed to have another auto deployment webcast. We're getting a lot of these questions.
Possibly.
On options and auto deployments, is there a way to use to only use the heartbeat trigger on failed auto deploy targets instead of heartbeat trigger hitting all of them? From Jason. So the heartbeat trigger you're talking about, for those of you
That's
who are wondering,
two different beasts there.
yeah,
actually.
we're talking about the heartbeat trigger. It's a schedule. What you're going to want to do if you have a schedule, let's say I want to schedule. Boy, I'm just sticking with. I'm going to just Velcro myself to iTunes. Let's say you want to do iTunes.
Proud of that one, aren't you?
I don't know. Why not?
Okay.
I'm going to do a new schedule just so we can show you an answer to your question. All right. Targets. Give me a name of a computer real quick. I'm having a brain fart.
Gene.
All right. We're just going to use Gene. But you'd have all sorts of targets in here.
Yeah.
If you have the stop deploying to computers once they succeed in this schedule, and then your schedule type is set to heartbeat. Now this heartbeat, remember, this requires PDQ inventory in at least running in at least pro or inventory or enterprise mode. So if you have heartbeat, what this means is, here's what I would suggest that you do. Because I think you can get what you're looking for. We're going to say okay to that. There's our schedule. You could, now this is set to heartbeat, which means it's only going to deploy to the targets when inventory sees that it goes from an offline state, like Lagertha is offline, it's no. If Lagertha is a target and then comes online, so the inventory changes from no to yes, then it will get deployed. But once it gets that success, it's not going to be deployed again, Lagertha, because we have that schedule set
To stop deploying after
to stop
success.
deploying once it's success. So you could set up a schedule, have all your targets, make it as a heartbeat, and then when you want to run it and hit all those online computers, you can just right-click and say, start schedule. And then it will deploy out to all those computers that are currently online, because you're just saying start it now. It'll hit those online computers. And then the other computers that are offline, as they come online and inventory sees that change, they'll get deployed. but they won't get deployed again because of that setting that Lex just called out, which is, once again, in the options, stop deploying the computers once they succeed. So you can get what you want. You just have to make sure that that's set. And, of course, it depends on how you have your schedule set up.
Yep.
So.
Hopefully that answers that.
I want to show you guys an example of what the different run as is. A great way to test to see if it actually is doing something. So I'm going to, let's make sure let's log on. Should have done this. Let's just see who's logged on here. I apologize. We're going to find a computer that has, well, Costanza. So Costanza's got Alex, right? No, that's the Cyclops. Let's do this to Cyclops. That's
Okay.
you. So I'm going to deploy
Today it
this.
is.
This is just, I call this test run as, and you can do this, in your own environments if you want. I've got 5 steps. This is just to verify that these run as are working. These are 5 command steps. Notice I've got this one. It says run as local system.
What is the command you're running?
All I'm running is, good question, I'm just echoing the username, because if it runs as local system, the username should be the name of the computer, followed by a $. The deploy user, whatever my deploy user is. So if I'm using this, if I'm deploying this as the user, the dude, you should see the dude here because I'm echoing the username. You won't see we'll cover it. This is if it's interactive, we need to cover that one. That means you run as this right here, deploy user interactive, if you need access to the desktop, but you still need to make sure that you're running this as an administrator. So you're still running as the deploy user, but this is where you could show windows to people, okay? So, and then logged on user, run as default, yada, yada. So if we
For
did
kicks
this,
and giggles, man, let's do it on Rancid instead.
Rancid, okay.
The reason is
Is Rancid logged, does anybody log
I'm
in?
logged into Rancid,
Okay.
so I was working on Cyclops. but
All right,
it's
so
not
let's do it.
logged on.
We're gonna deploy to Rancid. Is that based off of the punk group?
It is. I love Rancid.
Awesome. Hit deploy. This is, so obviously we're not deploying anything, all we're doing is a couple of echoes, but I want this to illustrate exactly kind of the power that you have. Not to mention, oh, by the way, I think I'm deploying this as the dude, and the dude may not have permissions.
Well, that's a good
We'll find out. And Rancid is online. Okay, access is denied, so that's okay. That means that the deploy user that I'm using does not have administrative rights, so let's go to Quintana, which does.
Which does. Yep. Well, that was a good test. We know I've got some security on my machine.
Nice illustration for troubleshooting.
Yeah. That was it. Yeah, we wanted to do that.
So now we're going to get back out there, hit Rancid. Now I've got Ruby Soho in my
I was thinking time bomb.
Ruby Soho. So now we're seeing this as run as local system. So how do we know that it's actually doing that? I'm going to click on this link. Because I'm doing an echo in a command step, it's basically sending stuff to standard out. You can see, sure, this is the local system, and it's the name Rancid $. So I know that this ran that as Rancid. Run as deploy user, this should say Quintana. There it is right there.
Nice.
This one won't show up because there's no standard out. Right now, on Rancid, a window popped up because it's interactive, and it showed the deploy user, which was Quintana. They'll see the same thing, but in the command window. Logged on user, Alex. All right. So if I deployed this step as anything, if I wanted to go to your home directory or I wanted to edit current user Hive in the registry, I would do that as Alex, and it would only affect yours. And then run as the default, which the default was set to Quintana. So that's just an example. I'm going to open this back up for anybody who wants to do that. Once again, all I'm doing is doing an echo % username. The only thing on the deploy user interactive, if you just did the echo username on the interactive, it wouldn't give you what you were expected. They have to actually start the CMD because, once again, they can see that. There are times where you do need to use deploy user interactive, but it's
Fairly rare.
It's fairly rare, yeah. We had some customers. I'm going to make this quick, JJ. We had some customers that said, we've got a package, it runs silently, but I can't deploy it. It fails. Well, the company that built it actually expected the desktop to, expected an interactive desktop, even though it didn't show any windows. I said, change that to deploy user interactive. He did it. They didn't see any windows, and it was a success.
Yep.
All right. Wow, that was a, yeah.
That was a, wow.
That was a hell of one. Hey, you guys, thank you very much. If you have any questions, send them to Annalisa suggestions for future webcasts,
Yeah.
etc.
Yeah.
I'm Shane.
I'm Lex.
Talk to you later.
See you guys.
Cheers.
Hey everyone, thanks for joining us today. If you had your question featured during the webcast, if you'll send me an email at webcast@adminarsenal.com so I can get that swag to you. If you have other questions, you can also go to our support site, support.adminarsenal.com. Lots of people there ready to help you with any questions you have with our PDQ products. And we'll see you next Thursday.